Where are you from, sir?
So I was born in the Bahamas.
Nice.
But I grew up in South Florida, and I live between South Florida and Atlanta.
Awesome, awesome. So you said you were born in the Bahamas, right? But did you spend much time there at all?
Actually, so I was born there, and then right after I was born, like I think when I was 1 or 2, my mom had to go to Cuba.
Okay.
Then from there I went to I think Mexico, then Brazil, and then
Oh, wow.
came to the U.S. and then spent a year or 2 in Haiti. And so my mother used to work for the UN.
Wow.
And so like we traveled a lot. And so for I think like the first 6-7 years of my life, I was traveling from country to country, which I think part of the reason helps me to be open-minded.
Yeah, definitely eclectic. I think I always say the quickest way to, increment and positively, at least intelligence, is by eating from different places and traveling different places, right? And reading. Yeah. I think that's the quickest way. So,
and then on top of that, like my family is so diverse.
Yeah.
I'm Bahamian, but my background is Cuban, Canadian, and we have also a little bit of Honduran, and so I think having family from all over the place just kind of like made me a little bit more open-minded than everybody else who kind of like just stayed in their respective countries.
Yeah. Of the places that you traveled initially in your youth, which one kind of impacted you the most, in those first 7 years before you made it all the way over here?
I think Haiti was the one that really, really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that some of the other countries didn't have their influence, but Haiti was just so different from wherever I had stayed.
Yeah.
And for everywhere else, I spoke the language. And so for us going to Haiti, me not speaking the language, getting like the initial culture shock. And then I was there during the time that Aristide was kicked out.
Who was Aristide?
So Aristide was the president of Haiti when I was there, and there was a military coup.
Oh.
And so overnight, violence erupted.
Yeah.
As a kid, I actually have memories of like walking to school and like seeing, people who had passed on.
Yeah, dead bodies in
the streets.
Yeah.
And so, some of those images like stuck out.
Yeah. So, which one of your parents has the Haitian ethnicity?
None of them.
Neither.
Neither.
Oh, okay, so awesome. So
it's kind of cool that me not being Haitian, the Haitian community has really welcomed me with open arms. Like that's one of the main questions a lot of people ask when it comes to Haitian voodoo is, do you have to be of Haitian lineage or Haitian descent in order to practice voodoo? And there are so many people who are able to connect with the Loa, who are able to manifest the Loa, as in have the Loa use their bodies to speak to people, and excel as Hougans and Mambos, which are priests and priestesses of the religion, and still, become very proficient of it, in the practice, and even though they may not come from a Haitian background.
Now, did you experience any voodoo when you were in Haiti that first time? Did you see anything?
So I would see things, and the interesting thing is I have had this back and forth between Haitian voodoo, and part of that back and forth was the prejudice that was taught to me by my own family members. And so there were things that were happening in Haitian voodoo, and I would get a glimpse of it, and my mother would literally grab me like, come here, And so the thing is even though a lot of my family are Santeros,
oh, wow,
they still had that prejudice, like, oh no, we're better than them. So, that's dirty. You don't want to do that. And so, I had to literally like overcome that.
Well, I when I originally thought you were Haitian, which doesn't change anything, but it's really common mix on the island. Like in Cuba, my mother's 𝗃𝗏𝗏 is actually, her family's from Haiti, but she was born in Cuba because there was this huge influx that occurred, I want to say early 1900s, where a lot of people from Haiti actually gravitated to the eastern side of the island, right? Where they would, cut sugar cane and perform a lot of the tasks that were necessary to kind of, get them out of the Spanish-American War and moving forward a little bit. And, some people saw something that they liked and they started procreating, right? So it's interesting because from what I understand, because the woman that crowned me is from Guantanamo, which is all the way over there where the flies are this big, right? And it's very hot. So it was interesting because the influx of voodoo over there actually acquired another misnomer, which was the ñáñigos, right? Now, for most people that hear the term ñáñigo, they think of the 𝗹𝗶𝗶𝗶 fraternity, right, in Havana that comes from Calabar and, Cameroon. But it ended up becoming a term that was associated with voodoo practitioners on the eastern side of the island. So I always found that very interesting. And even then, the magnitude of spirituality that was expressed there, and mind you, there were paleros over there, olorisha. Well, that was not so much at that time because it took a while from Havana to go all the way to the eastern side where Nifa really started, spreading. But it was so intense that even them, they were like, we don't want to get involved in that, And I've heard of ceremonies over there that I won't even express out of respect or just out of intensity because you hear some things, and how rustic the practice was, that even, as rustic as Cuba was, Haiti, when it came over, it was still impressive. So, yeah.
And then on top of that, the way that, because I'm in contact with people who practice the Cuban style of Haitian voodoo over there.
Yeah.
And it definitely did a lot of changes.
Yeah.
And just the way that they practice is like almost very, very much different between how they practice in Haiti and how they practice in Cuba. I think there's more of a difference than between like 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗶 and Lukumi.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, any differences that we can make note of right now?
Yeah. So say, for example, in Haiti, there is a process of kanzo, which is the 9-day initiation ceremony.
Nice.
And with kanzo, you basically, once you've done the process, not only do you get the 𝗀𝗏 or the spirit put on top of your head, you also are given the keys to work with any 𝗀𝗏.
Okay.
So it's like in the kanzo ceremony has so many different influences from, say, for example, from the Orisha religion. It has aspects of Ifa in it.
Sure.
Has aspects of Benin.
Yeah.
But that process isn't in Cuba.
Okay. So you have now. So the kanzo, if you want to do it, do you have to go back to Haiti?
No. Say, for example, my society, Société Sacrée de Saint-Isidore, we do kanzo here in the U.S.
Nice.
And we also do it in Haiti. And also, while Haiti's going through, this change
situation, yeah.
We're currently doing it in the Dominican Republic.
Okay, so right across the bridge. So when you're saying it's not in Cuba, it's just not in Cuba. Like the kanzo as such, you haven't experienced it there.
No, it hasn't reached because I asked.
Yeah.
And they let me know, no, we don't do that. And then there's a lot of 𝗀𝗏s that still aren't present in Cuba, that still are in Haiti.
Yeah.
And then, say, for example, there are little bits and pieces of the practices that didn't make it over. Like, say, for example, we've actually had to fix some people who have gotten ceremonies not done properly.
Yeah. Might be missing some things,
which happens. Like, say, for example, we have two spirits that are really, really big in Haitian voodoo, which is 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗶 and 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗶.
Oh, yeah.
And both of them are the yin and yang. And what a lot of people don't realize is in order to do something with 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗶, you have to do something with 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶. In order to do something with 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, you have to do something with 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶.
Balance.
Right. So what has been happening is, over time, people have forgotten that you need to keep the balance. So they'll do something with one and not do it with the other. And that throws a person out of balance.
Sure. Especially because from my, elementary knowledge so far, Dantor is a very fierce energy where Frida's much more nurturing or possibly even romantic.
Well, both of them are nurturing, just in different ways.
Okay.
But sweet Frida is a lot more softer.
Yeah.
She represents the more feminine aspect.
She's a soft mom.
Yes, but also more like soft lover.
Okay.
Dantor is more like the protective mother, like, I just want to stay home and take care of the kids.
Okay, then cool.
Freda is more like, I want to party and look.
I want to go outside. She's outside.
She's outside.
Okay.
With all the dudes.
You got the aunt and then you got grandma at home. So.
Right.
So with you have these experiences. Mom is trying to protect you. She's trying to understand what's going on. At what point do you start recognizing your own spirituality after having traveled and whatnot?
I I think in the beginning, I've always recognized it. So it's came in waves where I've done this, pa'lante pa' atrás, like this fast and forward, fast and forward. And I think there was a time that I can say that I solidified it. And each solidification happened with different practices, because I'm not only a Hougan, but I'm also a Palero.
Nice.
I'm an Espiritist, and I am 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲 in Lukumi.
Nice.
And so each of those realizations and acceptance happened at different times. So when it happened with Haitian voodoo, I was actually fighting depression.
Yeah.
And I still was okay financially and physically, but inside I was feeling empty.
Yeah.
And because of that emptiness, I was willing to accept, it made me more open to allow the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁 to come into my life.
Yeah.
And so that's when I did a consultation, and then some secrets that I had, and they were good secrets.
Yeah.
My godfather, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗁𝗲, did a reading for me, and he read me for filth.
Wow.
And so he told me about those secrets, and then he mentioned, you're going through this in your life, and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗁𝗃, he mentioned 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗁𝗃, which to me was just so much confirmation, because I went to a Haitian drumming 15 years before that reading.
Wow.
And 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗁𝗃 had came down and asked me to marry her.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm just here for the food.
Not so much.
And I never gave her an answer. But then she came up again, was like, hey, you're going through this, and I really want to help you. I really want to come forward and lift you up and protect you. And at that time, a lot of people didn't know there was actually some people that were out to, take my life.
Yeah.
And so she came in, was like, we're not having this. So it was that moment when she came in and says, hey, you're going through this, and I'm going to lift you up in every way possible. I was like, let's go.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's always nice when you can get those confirmations at those crucial moments. And those are really the faith building moments.
Right.
When you're at your lowest or you're at your weakest, and this energy comes to, support you, because I think the great value that comes with any of these faiths is just the confirmation that there is a higher power that sees what we're going through and wants us to be able to do better,
Exactly.
and provide those options. So now you have this confirmation from this energy. You probably saw something miraculous. I mean, you're still here, right?
Totally.
So, how is this process now? Because I've heard of different things. Like, what is the difference between the 𝗀𝗶𝗃𝗃 and the 𝗀𝗃𝗃?
So, I would say, if we're going to compare it to Santeria, I would say a 𝗀𝗃𝗃 is like a really profound segregation, but it's also like almost receiving your mano de rumba.
Oh, so it's a lot of identification.
It's a lot of identification, and it is a shorter period than the 𝗀𝗃𝗃. Like I mentioned, the 𝗀𝗃𝗃 is a 9-day ceremony.
Yeah.
The 𝗀𝗃𝗃 is like 2-3 days.
Okay.
But in that ceremony, your body is prepared to basically be presented to the ancestors, to let the ancestors know what you're doing.
Okay.
And also to be presented to the 𝗀𝗲𝗃, face to face. And so in that ceremony, most people find out who their 𝗃𝗃𝗃 is. And the 𝗃𝗃𝗃 is like your guardian 𝗀𝗃, or your guardian spirit.
Yeah.
So you usually find out in that ceremony. The 𝗀𝗃𝗃 is different because the 𝗀𝗃𝗃 ceremony actually has a 𝗀𝗃𝗃 in it.
It's incorporated.
It's incorporated.
So you can just go right into the 𝗀𝗃𝗃, but you're still getting the 𝗀𝗃𝗃.
Yeah.
It's just there's not as much space. It's like we're running it through.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, you still go through that process.
Yeah.
But in the 𝗀𝗃𝗃 ceremony, the 𝗀𝗃 is put on your head like when you're doing santo. Okay. And then on top of that, you actually are initiated in the priesthood, and that's when you receive the keys to work with any spirits. Of course, you have to start learning how to work with those spirits. But once you do a 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃, you can still only work with the spirits that are in your court.
Sure. So it's a little more of a spiritual interaction as opposed to when you get the 𝗀𝗃𝗃, you get your license, and now you can interact with this whole family of energies.
Exactly.
It's kind of like when you crown 𝗃𝗃𝗃. I mean, you could be crowned 𝗃𝗏𝗃, but you can still feed 𝗃𝗃𝗃, this, that, and the third, as long as you prepare yourself to be able to do so.
Exactly. So, like, to compare it to Santeria, it's like if you're 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗃, you can. You have your warriors and you
take care of them.
Yeah, but you can only take care of your warriors.
It's a little limited, but you're building, you're growing, you're preparing yourself. I always say that's the apprenticeship stage, where you're building good habits, because if you can't handle this, you definitely can't handle what's to come. So
exactly.
You get on your routine, you set up your schedule. Now, are you somebody that does come into trance?
I do.
Okay, then. So we'll focus on it in general, but I mean, did it happen when you did your conzo? Did it come through?
So typically during the conzo, that doesn't happen. What happens is the 𝗲𝗏 will sometimes visit you, and they'll give you dreams and confirmation. The first time it happened was before conzo.
Oh my gosh.
I went to a Haitian drumming. And I blanked out.
Oh man, that's scary.
And you know, as an Espiritist or as as a Palero, when you blank out and time passes, you're like, oh no.
I couldn't imagine. I really don't envy you guys at all. I look at like my wife's process or any of the people that come over hearing your accounts. I mean, you know, and most people will look at us as Babalaos and be like, wow, it's really boring. You guys don't leave Earth and come back. But, you know, I guess everybody's meant for different things. But just the pain, I think a lot of people don't realize, like, oh, yeah, it's cool. I go, I come. But you guys go through a lot of pain and uncomfortability, at least in the beginning.
The whole transition period. And, you know, depending on the spirit, it has different sensations.
Was 𝗿𝗏𝗿𝗲 the first one for you?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it kind of, you know, it was a little ambiguous.
Exactly. Yeah. The last time that it happened, though, was actually during a 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 ceremony.
Which is?
𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃. So 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 is a ceremony that is done at the end of December. It's usually around Christmas time. And that is basically where we tap into nature and we tap into the 𝗲𝗏𝗍 to bring healing and protection.
So kind of facilitating the new year ultimately.
Facilitating the new year, yes.
Yeah.
And so during that time, we make a bath. And so what happened is some of my brothers and sisters, my spiritual brothers and sisters, we were there making the bath.
Nice.
And all of a sudden it started hitting me. I'm the type of person, I do not like mounting at all.
Most people who actually do come through, especially with like intensity, don't.
So typically when I start feeling it, I leave the room.
Yeah, sure.
So everybody in my spiritual family, when they see me leave the room, they're like,
oh man. So he'll be back.
This time I started going through it, I was like, ooh, and somebody grabbed me, they're like, we know how you are, let's go. And then my godfather grabbed me, he's like, no, bring your table here. And so I got down, and the next thing I started, and then I just came back and I was like, he looked at me, he's like, it's okay, get up. And that's when I found out, he's like, yeah, it came through.
How much time had elapsed?
I'm not sure.
That's wild, man.
I didn't even...
You look at Odus, like, even on our behalf, like, 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏 is actually where the theory of relativity first manifested, where 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was, you know, he thought he was gone for like forever, and it was only 9 days, right? So that is interesting, the parallel between the Kanzo and obviously with us, like the number for Egungun and things like that, and how that kind of time warp kind of focuses around that.
Exactly.
You know? Because
it is said, and especially in the doctrine of Spiritism, that time in the spirit world and time here are two
completely different things. That's why things take so, like, we'll ask for something and we'll expect it in a week and we'll get it in a year. Like, but we gave it to you quickly, but that's based on our clock, not y'all's, you know? So, and now you're a Hougan, right? Beautiful. Are there other steps before that? Are there other steps after that? Is it specialties within that?
It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
There are certain people that they were supposed to so long ago that they're up into a certain age where it's like, okay, you're just overdue for it. Let's do it.
Word.
And there's certain people that they need to take their time. Like, say, for example, I did my 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏 first.
How old were you?
So I'm recently initiated. It was like 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, and I did my 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏.
Yeah.
And then like 6 months later,
Very
I conzoed. Nice. It's because when I did my conzo, when I did my 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏, I saw so much revolution in my life.
Yeah.
I just gained so much.
A lot of readjustment.
Like, yeah, and I was like, yo, if this is what the 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏 does, then what does the conzo ceremony do? You know, so I was like, let's go for it. But you know, my steps were really quick. Some people aren't, and then certain people, they're not even destined for conzo. Some people just need to do the 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏, and that's it.
I say that to people too. I know people that lived 100 years old with just mano rula. Everybody has different debts. So.
Exactly, and like I tell people, the priesthood isn't for everybody, and really and truly, the priesthood nowadays should be a little bit more screened than it is.
Yeah, it's oversaturated for sure. But you know, then you have unscrupulous houses. You know, whatever motivations, whether it's economic, whether it's social, who are like, yeah, let's just bring them in. You know, kind of the factory concept. So you're completely opposed to that.
Completely, and the cool thing is me and my godfather Mayombe, we kind of see eye to eye, which I think is the main reason why
important.
we worked so well together is we are completely against using the religion for monetary gain.
Yeah.
Yes, you should be compensated for your time.
Well,
yes,
study.
right. But it's spirituality and that person's destiny that comes first before money.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, in order to find out your path in voodoo, to find out where it can go, you have to do a consultation.
Sure.
And so I do a lot of translation for my godfather because I speak 4 languages.
Okay, well,
and so,
which are?
English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese.
Very nice.
Okay, so there have been people from all over the world who have, contacted him to do a reading.
What does he speak?
He speaks English and Haitian Creole.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, and so if the person either speaks French, Portuguese, or Spanish, I translate.
Make it happen.
Right, and so there's so many people from all over the world who wanted to try Nkonzo, and it came in, and sometimes right away he'll say, Melao, this ain't
not here.
We'll figure out how to tell him nicely.
Yeah.
And so, in those cases, we've actually had to say, hey, listen, you are very spiritual, but just not here.
Yeah.
Try and find someplace else.
Yeah.
Or,
It's kind of like when you get presented to the prenda and whatnot. And a lot of people get confused with that because 𝗲𝗲 is much more all-inclusive, where it's like, okay, you have hand of 𝗲𝗲, based on certain aspects of your life, this is what you're eligible for, etc. But when you talk about things that are very, very rustic, like, a Vodou or, Palo, where it's like, not here. It's like, oh man, am I not good enough? All these other things. And sometimes you're just not compatible. It's like relationship at the end of the day, whether spiritual or otherwise, sometimes it's not compatible. So I think that's important. And I think that's such a shock in the Western world because of this concept of gratification and entitlement. It's like,
exactly.
If I have the money, I should be able to do whatever I want. Right. And Africa really doesn't see none of that. They really don't care about the dollar per se. So it's like you were saying, spirituality first. What does the average day of a Hougan look like, my friend? At least in your case, Are we waking up early? Are we up so late, doing work that we're up at like 2 p.m.?
The cool thing with voodoo is the law know who you are.
Word.
And they kind of work with you, but they also work with you in terms of helping to be who you are as a better person. So there are some people who will wake up early and then pray to their 𝗲𝗲s, and there are certain people who just may sit in bed. It really depends on that person. Me specifically, I don't pray every day. And sometimes I have felt guilty for that.
Same here.
Right. But then, a lot of times I'll get readings from my own godfather to confirm things. And it's came up in a lot of readings. He's like, even though you may not pray every day, you do other things for the 𝗲𝗲 that no one else is doing. Not a lot of other people are doing.
Bro.
And therefore, that's your form of prayer.
We're in the same boat, bro, because I'll be frank with you, man, especially with fatherhood and things like that and the obligations of a household. There's times I leave the house, I don't even look at Orula. And I feel horrible because that's my guy. I remember there was a time before we become adult men and, you have all these responsibilities where I was waking up around 4. I was actually sweeping. I was doing all these things. And sometimes I'll be like, Papa, I'll talk to you later. But it's because I have a full day of, we're feeding this, we're doing this. I've always kind of felt it gives me a little bit of leeway as opposed to the person who's simply practicing and really might not have as much leeway, as far as why they didn't. So the fact hearing you say that similar criteria makes me feel much better because,
And the thing is remember, a lot of my family members practice Santeria.
Yeah.
So I would grow up with my mother, immediately getting up early and reading and attending her bowl with my brother, doing his ceremonies to 𝗲𝗲.
Yeah.
And so when I got initiated, I was like, I have to do the same thing. And I tried it. It just with my schedule, it's hard. But then a lot of things during the day I'm actually doing for the 𝗲𝗲. Yeah. Especially with my social media, especially talking to people. I don't do consultations, but if someone needs help with something, sometimes I'll help them out because right now I'm in the stage where I'm very selfish with my spiritual practice.
You're growing, you're building.
Basically, I've spent so much of my life helping people that I kind of retracted a little bit. And I'm just like, I'll help people by social media and talking and whatever and guiding them to whoever they need to go to. Yeah. But that is a major part of my day still. Yeah. And so the 𝗲𝗲 have noticed that and they're like, you're doing stuff, you're still helping people. So that's actually a form of service to us.
Before we delve into the Santeria aspect and the Espiritista aspect, because you're a really great interview because you're so multifaceted, based on your background, based on the things you've gotten involved in. What is a 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗶?
So, all right.
the dictionary version and then the real definition.
So when you 𝗀𝗀𝗃, you become a priest, right? And with the priesthood comes what they call a reglement.
Oh.
And reglement are rules that you have to follow.
Oh, so there is a juramento. There are rules.
There are
it's
rules.
Not just a free-for-all.
Now, whether or not you follow those rules
okay.
are completely different.
Okay.
And you do have consequences for that. So in voodoo, when you are a Hougan or Mambo, you are not supposed to hurt innocent people. You are supposed to fulfill the will of God, and you are supposed to help people to reach their alignment and maintain the scales of justice.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's a lot of other rules that goes along with it. So a lot of times people, like, say, for example, I was talking to a Santeria Mayor, and she was like, you can do bad things in Palo without consequences. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that. And she was like, in voodoo, you could do bad things without consequences. I was like, no.
Tampoco.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you are practicing, especially with the Rada spirits, which are spirits that come from, a lot of them have to do with Dahomey, the Nago spirits, a lot of the...
the Nago, yeah.
Yeah. You have to maintain the scales of justice. Now, as a 𝗃𝗃𝗃, the rules are out the window.
There you go.
And that is the thing with the 𝗃𝗃𝗃. You can a lot of times they're known for working the left hand, which is a lot of negative work.
Yeah, the left hand path.
Right, and so they will be the type of people that will hurt innocent people.
Mercenary.
Right.
Yeah.
Mercenary. Exactly. But the thing is no matter what, if you do anything negative, God still takes count of that.
Yeah, karma's karma.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No matter what you do.
Above everything.
Right. It's just when you're a 𝗃𝗃𝗃, you're literally saying, I don't care about the rules. They're out the window.
You being involved and obviously being in contact with Haiti and whatnot, how much is spirituality affecting what's going on there right now with, the revolution or revolts and things like that?
So
does every group have a 𝗃𝗃𝗃 on the payroll? You could imagine, or
it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
And so the thing is what I tell people, just because somebody may have a certain religion or just because a country has a certain religion doesn't mean that they actually follow it.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So, like, say for example, a lot of other countries who are having turmoil are Christian.
Sure.
Right. And it's just voodoo. Voodoo is an integral part of Haiti, but it's also something that's still very looked down upon by a lot of Haitians.
Yeah, just like in Cuba, a lot of santeros are actually looked down upon.
Right, exactly. But I think I think Santeria publicly is a lot more accepted because in Cuba than it is in Haiti.
Sure.
But a lot of people, a lot of the gangsters, they may not even have anything to do with voodoo. They may. It really depends on that person. Yeah. They may hire a 𝗃𝗃𝗃 or Hougan Mambo to work for them. But then there's some cases like where there's one guy, I can't remember his name. He was told that Hougan or Mambo did something to kill his son. Yeah. And so what he did is he went into the village and rounded up all the Hougans, the elder Hougans and Mambos. And
I think that just happened, right?
Right. And anybody who was trying to.
So that really happened.
Yep.
I thought it was fake news because somebody sent that to me on the channel.
I saw videos of it.
Oh, man.
There was these elderly people and they were just.
They just wiped them out. And, and you having those connections and me seeing a lot of young guys come in, there is this allure, right, to the street. For the people who really don't understand the street and have never experienced that, for some people that come in, there is this allure where, hey, I could have said client who does this for a living or this or this or this. And I remember from the very beginning, my godfather told me, to do business with them is to lay down with them. And you might not always be able to get up without fleas. And 𝗃𝗏 is the same way. 𝗃𝗏, it's like the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 says, we cannot mix with anything that is not sanitary, socially, hygienically, all of that falls under that umbrella. So I think that's why you had that conversation with that elder Santeria, because, us and me being from Opa-locka, the other side of the tracks, it was all Haitian. I grew up all Haitian, all Jamaican. We were the only Cuban family back then. Now it's changed over where, Hialeah and Opa-locka kind of converged over Lejeune and we're all, living next to each other. But, it was always that timidness of, we kill our goat a certain way, they do their chicken a certain way, but we're a little different. When in reality, through this information and clarification people like you are providing, we're really supposed to all be playing by the same rules. So, we see the consequences of that, know, and no one is above that. I think even, I call it the syndrome of the green and yellow, where some of the brothers think they can get away with everything, whether it's on top of a Osang and Orung and Abita, and you begin to realize that's not a clean way to live. you know, and that's why 𝗃𝗲𝗶𝗶𝗶 said 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, and cleansing and things like that is what we have to focus on, because whether it's from somebody else or whether it's just walking down the random corner that had a muerto there that we didn't know about, we have to constantly be despojando.
Exactly. And that's the same thing, I believe, is present in almost all spiritual religions.
Should be.
Say, for example, in Vodou, we have to do a lot of baths. And same thing with Espiritismo and Palo.
Yeah. So, mom's Cuban, if I understood. Okay. Have you been to the island?
Yeah.
Okay, then. What were the similarities?
I was just there a couple months ago.
Okay, then. It's rough. After COVID, it's going through
I don't even like going. I'm going to be honest.
It's painful.
I was supposed to go tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. It's a painful experience. Like, when I went to receive a couple things semi-recently, it was pretty painful because you see the effect COVID's and politics has had on it, and just the lack of resources. Like, I didn't have a glass of milk the whole time I was there. And most people hear that and be like, that's unheard of, you know, because there's cows over there, but I'm talking about not even powdered milk, you know. So
especially when you go when there's a shortage.
Word. No, and then you're in the shower and the water shuts off or the lights shut off or you have to get water. That still exists over there where, like, you run out of water, the blue tank is full next door. You're like, yo, do you have any for my family? Like, there's still that aspect of community that you really don't see over here. So do you lean more towards Vodou now, being that you're growing within it, as opposed to Santeria?
So, yes, and then I got called out for it by the law.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing is I think my story is a little bit different than a lot of other people. There are people who are destined for just Santeria.
Sure.
And there are people who are destined for Vodou.
Yeah.
And there's people who have the possibility of both.
Well, Melao was initiated in everything, so it makes sense.
And then there are some people who have to do both.
Yeah, sure.
And I have to do both based on both of them.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so what I always tell people, what the Santos say in Vodou, the Santos are going to say in Santeria.
It's one truth.
Right. And so once I crowned, I was actually talking to Mima, and she was like, well, now that you initiated it in Vodou, you don't have to worry about Santeria.
And who was that, your mom?
Yeah.
How did she react, by the way, when you actually went forward with the Vodou thing? Because in the beginning, you mentioned how she was very resistant and even fearful.
She stopped talking.
Oh, yeah. My grandmother cried when I found out I was doing Ifa.
Really?
Just because of the reputation. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand that, yeah, it's beautiful, the priesthood, all these other things, but in Miami. Is that where you lived when you first moved here?
West Palm.
Okay,
West
same
Palm.
thing. Yeah, so South Florida.
Right.
But all that whole A1A all the way down, everybody had a reputation, you know?
Right.
So in our era, in the 80s and whatnot, you know, there's stories, you know, the cowboy era, as we like to call it, and Ifa played a huge role in that, you know, just like Vodou. I mean, when you look at Little Haiti and what was going on over there with the brothers over there, so she was completely terrified. She's like, you're gonna go to jail, you're gonna get killed.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, and the thing is my dad is from the Bahamas, and my dad's very, very Christian, and
like most people are over there.
My stepmother and my grandmother are actually Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh gosh.
So I have like two.
It's an interesting Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, they don't do Thanksgiving. Remember?
Oh yeah, I forgot. Forgive me, no turkey.
Yeah, so like that side, I don't even bring it up.
Yeah, sure.
With the Cuban side and certain family in the Bahamas, I do have certain family members that are in the Bahamas, and so I found out it was the reason why. I found out Vodou is in my family, even though we're not Haitian. So apparently my grandmother, my Bahamian grandmother, was initiated into Haitian Vodou.
Wow.
My Bahamian family members knew, but they kept it from me.
Sure.
And so like certain family members knew. And when she died, she actually appeared to me. And I find it interesting. I've gotten in debates with other Spiritistas that believe that spirit is not going to reveal itself or speak to anybody a year and 7 days after they die, which it's a lot of people say that.
I mean, we put rules. The problem is we as humans want to put rules on God.
Exactly.
There's regular. It's like you said, reglement. There's guidelines, but that doesn't mean it can't be completely different.
Exactly. So they called me as soon as she died, and 17 minutes later she showed up.
Sure.
And so, long story short, I went from cousin to cousin to aunt, and finally I reached to one cousin. I was like, "Yo, I keep getting passed around. What's going on here? Like, what do you need to tell me?" He goes, "You're next." And I was like, "Next?"
Like, I'm gone. I'm out of
I'm
here.
like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm next? He's like, you're next in line. Yeah. And I'm like, no. He goes, our grandmother practiced Haitian voodoo. I knew from the beginning when you were a little kid that you were next. Wow. When she died, I knew I was going to get this call from you. And by the way, my grandmother started appearing to different members of the family.
Yeah, she started haunting them. You know, to put it a certain way, yeah.
No, she was haunting them.
Yeah.
One of my, I think it was one of my aunts, she tried choking her husband.
Oh, God.
Another aunt, she like...
It's normal Caribbean.
She pulled the sawanas off the bed, the blankets off the bed. Yeah. And so he's like, yeah, you kind of have to do this to calm her down. Otherwise, you know. And so because of that, that's the reason why I had to initiate into voodoo. Yeah. And then I remember once when I went to Haiti, I did, not Haiti, to Cuba. I did a drumming to my ex's 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃.
Beautiful.
And at this time, we had just gotten together. He didn't know about my grandmother. No one knew about my grandmother. 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 came down and was like, there's a woman in your family that just recently died. Wow. She wants you to do something for it. You need to do it.
Oh, that's huge, man.
𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 came down again here in Miami about a year later. And she was like, you have to do Santo, but before you do Santo, there's something in your ancestry that you still haven't attended to that you need to attend. Wow. This time I was trying to play dumb and was like, oh, I need to work Palo more because you know, by blood I'm also I'm Yoruba and Congo.
So you have Bantu and all those things. Yeah, of course.
And so I'm like, that's what she meant, but no, she was referring to Haitian voodoo. So bringing back to the whole with Santeria, once I had gotten confirmation during this path that I was always going to have to do both. Sure. And so once I had initiated, I focused on voodoo. And I would totally stop attending my 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. Yeah. And you know, I used to still attend to my 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. Like I know a lot of people don't, but I would. Yeah. And the law kept coming on. I was like, no, we're here. They're still here. Yeah. You need to go over there too. Yeah. And so you know, the law always makes sure that I keep balance with Santeria. Yeah.
Well, they're brothers. It's all the same thing. I mean, when you actually look at 𝗪𝗪𝗪's life story, he was a voodoo practitioner. He was from Benin originally. Mm-hmm. You know, where they practice fa, you know, and all those things, fa, dogung, and all those concepts. So I've never really, you know, seen any difference, you know, because even if you look at the similarities of the concepts and structures of ceremony, you can see we have the very similar roots. So, you know, I've initiated many people into voodoo. I know many god kids of mine have gone and gotten initiated over there, and it's just parts of their story. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's as boring as me, where it's like hand Ifa, do Santo, and do Ifa. Right. But that could be a reflection of all the things I did in the past life, you know. So everybody, that's why when you're in a position of elder, or you're in a position of godparent, better said, with our children, whether it's the ones we give birth to or the ones we assimilate spiritually, we have to understand they have their own path. Mm-hmm. So what happens with us sometimes is like, no, Ifa or nothing. And not even Orumila had that criteria, because there's various Odu where being about Allah already, Orumila initiated into other things, you know? So
I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, no, because it's very key, because when we could possibly remove the social aspect or the economic aspect, it really makes things much easier. Like, hey, you're not doing anything taboo. It's making you a better person. It's not interfering with your obligations here. Orula said that. He said, as long as it doesn't interfere with me, do it. You know, so you look at someone such as yourself that has assimilated so much ceremony and practice and still what's to come, and you're doing just fine. No, you're going to die if you do that. Nobody dies from anything spiritual, you know?
And the fact is I have met a couple Babalaos who did Kanzo after Ifa.
Yeah, we just don't talk about it, but you know,
that was the thing. They was like, they keep it like very, very secret.
Brother, I'll keep it a buck with you. Like, I've had the opportunity to go swear 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 many times over. I don't do it, I guess, in a very small aspect because of the social aspect, which isn't a huge influence, but Ifa consumes me in a way where I'd feel like I wouldn't be fulfilling over there. Mm-hmm. Because I'd have to focus so much on Odu, right? So I just attend to the muerto that's from over there, and we're good. But you know, I know brothers that, you know, hopped Mason, hopped Kinyongo, and everything after, because you have to think, to survive, we all had to converge upon each other. So when the Babalaos first came over, and they had their numbers, and then you had the people from the Congo, right? It's like, well, let's start initiating each other. So God forbid, if all of us pass, maybe a couple people will be able to carry on both. Mm-hmm. So all the Babalaos that first generation that got to Cuba that ended up being Paleros, they were Babalaos already when they got scratched. It wasn't until after that, and you know, it's not a secret, you know, to each his own. At the end of the day, one person unfortunately transitioned for whatever reason there, and they're like, no, can't do it because somebody's going to die. It's not that. Because if it wasn't for those concepts, we would probably not even be sitting here speaking.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And so I always say that when it comes to certain rules and regulations that we have in our religion, you have to put them into practice. When you put them into practice, what are the results? So say, for example, there's a lot of people who would say, once you do Santo, you can't do voodoo. Once you do Ifa, you can't do voodoo. But there are hundreds, possibly even thousands of people who have done it.
Don't talk about
and
it.
They're exactly, and their life is fine.
No, and then another thing is when your life is in danger, there's very few things you won't do. So, you know what I'm saying?
And I remember 15 years ago when I had been to a Haitian drumming, I actually met a Melao who was initiated. And I spoke to him and I was like, yo, you got a hand of Ifa on? And I mean, like, he's like, yeah, I'm a Melao. And I said, you did voodoo before? And then he goes, no, I did it afterwards. And he explained his story. Yeah. He had to do it to save his life, and the law came in, and he's like, it was the best thing that I ever done. And despite, everything that people say that you can't, he goes, I followed what 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗁 told me. Yeah, I asked 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗁, he said yes, and I did it, and everything works out.
But there's various Vodou. Like, you look at Vodou's like 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗍, in the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, when 𝘃𝗶𝗹𝗁 got initiated into Palo, and he started initiating them as well from the Congo. It's more of a social aspect. And I think that's a great segue with you, because you have a great presence online. My wife spoke very highly of you. You know what I'm saying? We're all here. How much of an epidemic is the lack of study causing our spiritualities in general? Because I know you've had a couple interactions, So
yes. And so here's the thing. To keep it a buck, all of our religions are deteriorating because of the lack of studying and because of the lack of comprehension. I remember somebody just said, there was somebody who posted a video saying that they were told not to ask questions. And they were told to just do and do. And the thing is, when you don't ask questions, you don't find out what you're doing. And then the meaning gets lost. And then little by little, what you're doing gets lost. Yeah. And so even with the fact that with the link between voodoo and Santeria, there are a lot of people who don't know that 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏 actually came from Benin.
Originally,
started out
there's
there.
a bunch of deities that we assimilated from over there. Like, Osai is a completely different religion. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That we, through the interactions with Ifa, assimilated. Just like Oro is a completely different cult altogether. So, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so, because people are not taking the time out to study, things are not getting passed down, and meaning isn't getting passed down. And when meaning isn't getting passed down, the intention isn't getting passed down. When intention's not there, the power and
energy,
and energy behind the work isn't there as well.
It's gone. If you don't know what you're saying and why you're doing what you're doing, it's rewind, play, stop, repeat. So you can't allow that. But online, we see that a lot, and that was a big motivation for our channel, which it seems like it was for you as well, where there are things we could talk about without delving into taboo or completely, dishonoring our ancestors. But you kind of look at intention, and sheep are much more valuable than wolves. Right? Because from the sheep, I get the wool, I get the meat, I'll have them, eat my grass, all these different things. But a wolf, you have to respect him. Mm-hmm. You have to give him his value. And that's what 𝘃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 wanted. He didn't want a lot of sheep. He wanted a pack, know? So I think what really needs to be scrutinized is anybody who says, don't ask me, or you're not ready for that. And another thing I think, and a lot of people, we don't like to touch on it because it is so painful. I think communism attributed a lot to that.
It did. And to delve into the Spiritism concept, when people don't realize when it comes to Spiritism, as a Spiritist, you have to do what they call caridad.
Charity.
Charity is a really big part of Spiritism, but that has been something that's been completely thrown out. And the reason why I say this is when Spiritists in Cuba first started, it was all about studying. It was all about sitting down,
preparation,
and scientifically looking at the spirits and also how to live in conjunction with the spirits. And before communism came, there were Spiritist magazines where they talked about
revistas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were articles, bro. Yeah.
When communism came, those were outlawed and completely. It stopped. And so that is where the deterioration of Spiritism started. Yeah. Is all those books and publications were banned, and so people forgot that as a Spiritist we're supposed to study.
Yeah. And not everything, tradition is huge, but tradition and study and academia always walked hand in hand, because if we continued certain traditions, we'd all still be sacrificing each other till this day.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
you know,
And so what I always say is, one, we have to look from the past
Yeah.
to study the past and learn from it. But however, we have technology of the current.
Yeah.
So we use the best from the past and the best of the current
Yeah.
in order to have a brighter future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you really took me back, because I haven't heard about the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏s in years. Mayubona's husband, his father was like old school Espiritista from Spain. And a lot of that literature from Kardec and all those guys was able to make it to Cuba via Spain when they all started bringing over these huge libraries and things like that. But there were whole societies.
Exactly. And people don't realize, and this is the reason why I tell people you need to go back and learn history.
Yeah.
Spiritism is one of the reasons why the Cuban Revolution started.
Well, all of them, the crazy thing about it is Jose Marti, Spiritist. I forgot the other guy's name. He looked just like him. They all kind of looked the same at that era. But even the people that...
A lot of the Mambises.
All of the Mambises. Like, Maceo was a Palero, Quintín Bandera was a Palero, but they were all Masons and Espiritistas. It kind of was hand in hand. And then you look at the communist revolution, a lot of the guys that helped indoctrinate that were Espiritistas as well. They just couldn't talk about it from that point forward. Like, people had Santo done and everything. You know, so the idea that you don't study it, it makes no sense.
Exactly. And then I remember with a certain person that had gotten to it online, she was like, I learned this Spiritism and we didn't learn from books. And the fact is that is somebody who hasn't even gone back into their history, because even back in the days when our elders couldn't read, what they did is they had someone who knew how to. And that person would sit and read to everybody. So people were still reading without having to read.
But 𝗃𝗏𝗏 was the same thing. None of the Babalaos, that first to second generation, really were literate. So they had one guy named Pedro Arango, God bless the dead, and he wrote out 𝗃𝗏𝗏 for us. But if it wasn't for that guy, I mean, we'd still be doing oral tradition to a certain degree over here. So, you know, to each his own. Everybody carries their house how they choose. But I mean, when you look at how it actually made it to the New World, and Espiritismo Criollo was born from the scientific one that came out of France, it was all Kardec's literature. I remember because, you know, it was kind of always identified by my godmother, great Espiritista as well, daughter of 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 that she is. She was like, I know you're going to do 𝗃𝗏𝗏, right? But you can't study 𝗃𝗏𝗏 right now. So you're still coming up with the money. We're still interacting. You're getting organized. Read this. She gave me the Spirits book. Boom. And bro, I swear to God, as I was like, this is the most boring thing I've ever read in the beginning, because it's a very slow start.
It starts out slow.
It's 500 years old, bro. Like, there's words I was having to translate, but I could tell you by the end of that book, around the time when I started the Mediums book, I started hearing things. And people are like, you're bugging. I'm like, bro, just reading what was left behind from that man and all those interviews he did to all those, you know, spirits, it literally takes you to another level. It's literally, it's school. You know,
and so a lot of people have the misinformation or are misinformed to think that the books teach you about being a medium. They teach mediumship. The book really teaches you how to act as a medium and
be
the
aware.
Purpose of being a medium.
Yeah.
And so that way, once you have that foundation, then you are more open to be able to work with the spirits in a proper manner. So that way it purifies your soul.
No, you build upon it for sure, because it gives you that awareness, the feelings. And for me, the big thing was what I'm thinking versus what's actually happening, or what I feel versus what's real. Because, you know, we have thousands of thoughts pass through our mind on a daily basis, but what aspect of that is so foreign or, you know, impossible for me to know to where I'm actually able to recognize that as a message, you know, and to be able to use the scientific method of elimination, where it's like, if there's no other explanation for this scientifically, it must be spiritual or in another realm. So I think those, even now, to be frank with you, because I'd be lying if I said I knew everything about every sign. Sometimes, you know, I'll be on the mat, I'll have a couple of my guys with me, and I'll just shoot from the hip something that's not in the book, and the client will be like, yep. And they'll be like, where's that at? I said, you always have to develop your mediumship. 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, I don't know what happened after basically that revolution. We became less spiritual. Babalawo, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying we have to be coming down or all these different things, but we always have to have a gungung, and I still take care of my 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, bro. I still do. I can imagine how your 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 looks, though.
Very simple.
Really?
Very simple.
Old school. That's good to hear.
Yeah, like you said, old school. And I think the difference between me and a lot of other spiritists is I started, you know, with the typical Cuban mindset when it comes to practicing Espiritismo. But then I started coming in contact with Brazilians, and then when I was in
candomblé,
Brazil,
nice.
not candomblé,
Okay.
Spiritism that they practice there.
Very nice.
Then I went to France and I sat with a Spiritist there,
Very nice.
and I saw the way that they practice, and it still works.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Straight water sometimes.
it's sometimes not even water present.
Yeah, no.
And so, because of that, my bowl was very simple.
Very nice. And you got to think it helps to have certain things and medium points, but sometimes, especially at your level of elevation, probably it can interrupt. You know what I'm saying? If you have too much, convolution there. So, brother, what's next for you?
Santo.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And you have quite one to crown.
Yes. 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁.
Oh my gosh. Yo, when that one comes through the door, I look at all my guys and everybody, I'm like, man, put that thing on an extra belt loop. You know what I'm saying? Because when you talk about previous ceremonies, all that goes into it. And, with 𝘃cie, you never really know what you're getting that day, And what aspects of your character can you reflect upon and see that you got that from him?
Well, first of all, from when I was a kid, they automatically was like 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁.
Yeah.
And they say that because, like, I was always I used to play tricks on people.
Word.
Like, literally.
Travieso.
I would steal people's things, have them look for it.
Yeah, and you're just enjoying the whole frustration.
And then
the whole
put
time,
it in
sweating.
plain sight.
Oh, you're horrible.
So that way they were like, no, we checked there. I don't, and my family doesn't even know that to this day.
Word.
Deviant.
Horrible, yeah.
And I also think that the fact is that I'm a traveler.
Yeah.
And that 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 is like one of the most open-minded of all the Orishas. And it lets you know that there's so many different ways of doing things. And I think that is the part that resonates with me. Yeah. And in my life, I feel like all the travels that I've done and all the studying that I have done in these different traditions, that it helps me to get a better view of the world, to realize that no matter what you practice, you're the same.
Yeah, definitely. Now, brother, I will say, everything I've heard about you is conclusive, man. Well spoken.
Thank you,
gentleman. Even just sitting next to you, it's like my godmother used to say to some of the people that used to come to the misas, "Eres un muerto viviente, eres un muerto caminante." The energy's there, and you can see the intention and the honesty and transparency is there, which I think all of the things that you're involved in are gonna need. As you grow and you get more licenses and more knowledge, and just continue doing what you're doing, and, really expounding upon the talent that God gave you. So you being so spiritual and having so many lineages and things that have converged upon you, what would you say to our ancestors if you had the opportunity to be in front of them, and just express yourself?
Honestly, to be transparent, help us.
Yeah.
Help us. And I feel that we as a society, especially religiously, are deviating so much from the intentions of our ancestors that I feel that we need more of their guidance, because right now in all of our various religions, whether it's Palo, whether it's Espiritismo, Santeria, Vodou, there's a lot more people who are being driven by ego and money. Than the actual love of spirit and the love of the soul and the purpose of all these religious practices.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a resounding message, and one that needs to be taken to the heart. And I think that as long as channels such as ours or yours keep fighting the good fight, more people might be motivated to speak the truth rather than with intention or bias. So
exactly.
From all of us here, we want to say sincerely thank you, brother.
Thank you
we'll be sure. Me. Yeah, we'll be sure to share all the links and whatnot, family. Be sure to follow brother Melao. He's a heavy presence on TikTok. And if you want to communicate with him or get some advice, you'll have all of that in the description. What do you think, Phil?
Man, I am impressed.
Beautiful stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate
Capital impressed.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of impressed, guess what time it is?
Oh, man, it's member time, dog.
That's right. All right. I'm going to do things a little bit different this time. I know the past couple times we did it different, so I'm going to keep on that trend. But before we get started, under this video, there's a little button that says join. That gives you access to 3 separate tiers. So if you want to get more information about Joe, be part of our community, discounts on merch, extra episodes, extra live shows that's only available to members. It's a huge community that we would love to have you join. So we're going to show some love to the people that show love to you, man.
Nice.
So this time, let me hit the button again. So this time, I'm going to just spotlight the people who have re-upped and joined recently within the past.
Awesome.
week.
Awesome.
Okay. So shout outs to Animal Crackers. They are VIP.
That's a great name.
They've been a member for 11 months and they just rejoined today. We got Zalmara Laura. They're our supporter. They are brand new. They just joined today.
Welcome.
Shout outs to the Alchemist.
Nice.
They are a supporter. They joined today, brand new.
Very nice.
We got Hot Lana.
Okay.
They are a premium super fan. They've been a member for 3 months. They just re-upped today.
Thank you.
We got Shannon 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗏.
Okay.
They are a premium super fan. They have they upgraded 3 days ago. And shout outs to TW. They are a premium super fan and they just rejoined 4 days ago.
Guys, we appreciate you. You are the best part of our channel for sure. A couple closing thoughts before we go ahead and disconnect. Botanicacandlesandmore.com is up and running for all your services and product needs. We do ship. If you can't catch us on YouTube, be sure to catch us on all the major platforms on the audio cast, Spotify, Apple, etc. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share. Big thank you from us all here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.